Welcome to my channel of Miel Hebraica, Hebrew honey, and today we're going to look at an interesting word, dry land, Yabasha in Hebrew. This particular root appears a whole lot more as a verb. We'll see a few instances of that, but it also appears in some interesting places as a noun, dry land. Yabasha means to dry out, and Yabasha means something that's dried out, in other words, dry land. So on with our study. Genesis 1:9, God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. Vayomer Elohim yekavu hamayim mit tahat hashemayim al makom ehad ve'tera'eh ha-yabasha vehiken. And this is the word we're interested in right here, Yabasha. And that's translated here as dry land. And the re'eh is to see or let it appear. And this is what this word is, tera'eh, and it will appear, the Yabasha. Yabasha. Here's a transliteration. I'm putting up a transliteration to make it a little bit easier to see what this Hebrew sounds like. Yabasha. Notice there's double B here because of the dagesh, and the comments are indicated with a little tent on the top, and the sheen has a little accent mark. That's the scene. Yabasha. I've gotten used to calling it Yabasha, but anyway, Yabasa. Genesis 1:10, and God called the dry land earth, and he called the gathering of the water seas, and God saw that it was good. V'yakra Elohim la Yabasha eretz u'le mikveh Ma'im kara yamim, and to the gathering of the waters he called the seas. Vayare Elohim kitov. This is the same verb that we saw before. This time we don't have the hey on the end right here, and this is just a simplified third person form of this verb here. Vayare Elohim kitov, and God saw that it was good. So dry earth appears at the creation. We catch up with dry earth or dry land again here, Yabasha, same word again, Yabasha. Hebrew has a lot of ways to describe drying out, and this is just one of them. So if you say, "Oh, I know the Hebrew word for drying out," you got a few more to learn before you catch up with all of them. I think anybody who lives close to the desert is going to have lots of words to describe how things can dry out. And as for you, lift up your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea, and divide it so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. Ve'ata, and you. Harem. Rem is to lift something up. It's the ram, same ram we have in Avram, to lift something up high. Harem, okay, lift it up, put it up in the air. Et mateha. Mateha is a staff right here, and the staff is something that you indicate a spot. Okay, the root meaning of tet is a little cross that marks a spot. So mark the spot, and the staff is used to mark that spot. So that's how you have this little mateh. You can remember it's a mnemonic also for remembering what this word happens to be. Mateha, your staff. U netech, okay, mark it, okay, and now use your hand to mark the spot as well. Okay, use the staff, use your hand to mark the spot that something's going to happen. The staff, by the way, Moses' staff got a lot of use during the plagues, stretching out over the river, stretching over the land, bringing on the plagues. So this staff has already seen a lot of use. Now it sees some more use. U nete. Et yadeha, and stretch out your hand. Al Hayam, over the sea, over this lake. Hu Bekae Hu, and strike it, split it open. Okay, when the sons of Korah were swallowed up by the crack in the ground, this is what happened. Split open the ground. They all fell in. And same thing here. Bakeh, and you will split the water. It's splitting the waters. Okay, waters are in front of you. One side moves this way, one side moves that way, and the waters split. Of course, this is possible only with divine intervention. So, Yebakehu, Yabo, and they will go. Yabo, Bnei Israel, the sons of Israel. Betok, in the middle of. Hayam, the ocean or the sea. Ba Yabasha, okay, on the Yabasha, on the dry ground. Ba, this is a preposition here, on or in, on. Ba Yabasha. And the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with the waters like a wall to them on their right and their left. The Yabo, and they went. Bnei Israel, the sons of Israel. Betok, in the middle. Hayam, of the sea. Ba Yabasha, on dry ground. Ve Hamaim, and the waters. Lehem, to them. Homa, were a wall. This is a singular here. Now there's a wall, apparently a wall on one side. Yeah, and that's what we have right here in the next description of what these walls are. Homa, minam, on the right of them. Okay, on the right of them. This is from. This is a preposition, means from, and then this is yamim, means to the right. Nam, of them. Okay, from the right of them. Okay? There's three things happening in this word right here. Me, mim, mi, ya, nam. And then the next one is on the left. Okay, u, mi, shmo, lam, mi, shmo, lam, and this is a conjunction, and me, and from. Shmone, that would be the left. Lam, shmolam, from the left of them. So it's a wall on the right, wall on the left, and the people can walk down the middle on dry ground. This is the opening. What would you call the opening phase of the Exodus? Okay, before this, they're still in Egypt. After this, they're out engaged with God in the desert, and then that's the Exodus continues on from there. The walking on dry ground opens the narrative sequence of the Exodus. Walking on dry ground through the Yam Suf, through the Red Sea, opens the sequence, and walking on the dry ground of the Jordan brings the story to a close. In other words, it's in between that there are 40 years of walking and wandering in the desert. And when Pharaoh's horses, with his chariots and horsemen, went down into the sea, the Lord brought the waters back onto them, but the Israelites walked on dry ground through the sea. Ki va sus. Okay, this is a collective sus. The word actually here is in singular. Sus is a horse, and then when Pharaoh's horse, but this means all of his horses, all of the ones that formed his cavalry here. Ki ba sus faro be ricavo, with his chariots. Be ricavo with his chariots. U be farashav, and his horsemen. Farash is the horseman. Be farashav. Beyam, in the sea. Be yashev. Yashev is to return, to bring it back. So the Lord had brought the waters out, and then suddenly all of these waters returned, all on one fell swoop over the Egyptians. Yashev, Yahweh, Elohim, on top of them. Etme, the waters. Hayam, the waters of the sea. Etme, This is the construct plural form of Maim, okay? And with a construct form, you lose the plural form, you lose the mem at the end, but the rest of it's still there, which means this is the real root of it. Hayam, okay? Me hayam, the waters of the sea. Ubene, the sons of Israel, halku, they walked. Ba Yabasha, okay? They walked on the dry land. Betok hayam, in the middle of the sea, and they had already passed through. And after they were to safety, then the Lord let the other waters collapse onto the Egyptians. And we pick up the story here in Joshua 2 verse 10, and I've included a verbal form of this word here, hobish. This is betshin, okay, betshin. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the waters of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the two Amorite kings, you completely destroyed across the Jordan. Ki shamnu, and we have heard, et asher, that which, hobish, how dried, Yahweh hobish, okay, how the Lord dried. This is a causative form, hifil, how it was caused to dry out, okay, how it was caused to dry out, hobish. The root of this one, if you look it up in the dictionary, would be yod bet sin, and hobish. Yahweh et me, the waters, Yamsuf, of the Red Sea, the waters of the Red Sea. Red Sea is actually the Reed Sea, but it's apparently an arm of the Red Sea, and Yamsuf is the place that they crossed at. Me fenehem, in front of your faces, Be shetehem, that you came out of, in front of your faces that you came out of, from Mishraim, from Egypt. It's a dual form with the comments Yod Hidik Mem, very classic dual form. Sometimes understood as the Mishraim as the two banks of the river Nile, or other theories about this, but it's something that's a dual. Mishraim, a well-known description of Egypt. Mishraim, Asher, Ashtem, and what you did, Le Shnei Malche, to the two kings of. Malach is king, and this is the plural contract form of Malachim, but you don't have the mem on the end on a construct, so you have Le Malche Ha Emori, the Amorites, Emori, Asher Be Aber, in which you crossed, in crossing, Ha Yarden, the Jordan, Le Sihon, to Sihon, Le Og, and Og. These are both prepositions of doing something, which which you did to Sihon and to Og. Asher, which Cheramechtem, which you reduced to Cherem. Cherem is something that's dedicated, something that's given to the Lord in its totality, and the way it's done is to be absolutely destroyed. And so that's why this word is used here, Cherem. Okay, Jesus in his discussions with the Sadducees often ran into this problem, because he said, "Oh no, things are Cherem; they're dedicated to the Lord." When you read Cherem in the Old Testament, you'll see that things dedicated to the Lord get destroyed. Ha-cherem tem otam, which you did. Yeah. And you should make known to your children, saying, Israel crossed this Jordan on dry land. Now Joshua 4 verse 22 is a description that Joshua gives of once they're across the land, they have to set up a memorial pile of stones, 12 stones representing 12 tribes of Israel. And this will then bring to memory whoever sees these stones what had happened at that spot. And so, vehodatem, and you will make known, this is yada, you must make known, et benechem, to your sons, to your children, benechem, lemor, saying, by Yabasha, on dry land. Okay, same kind of dry land they had when they crossed the Yam Suf, the Red Sea. They have the same kind of dry land, open passage for them to enter the Promised Land. So they leave slavery and enter the Promised Land on Yabasha. Avar Israel, as they crossed Israel, et Hayarden Hazeh, as Israel crossed this Jordan, this place right here. And Hazeh kind of says right here. So Hayarden Hazeh. And now explaining what had happened, for Jehovah your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you had crossed over, just as Jehovah your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up before us until we had crossed over. So here Joshua does tie the two events together. Asher, Hobish, just as Yahweh, Hobish, as Yahweh had dried up, Yahweh Elohechem, as Jehovah your God, dried up. Hobish, et me, the waters, again, construct form, Hayarden, of the Jordan, me fenechem, in front of your faces, in front of you, ad abarichem, as you crossed, kesher, just as asa, Yahweh Elohechem, just as Jehovah your God did, asa, did, le Yam Suf, to the sea of the Red Sea, Asher, Hobish, as he dried out. So he dried out the Jordan and he dried out the Yam Suf. Okay, Hobish, same word here, Hobish, causative form of Yabash, and he caused it to dry out. Okay, he caused it to dry out. Me fanenu, in front of your faces. Okay, in other words, you were looking at it in front of, you saw it happening. Okay, and imagine many of them standing on the slope up high enough to see what had happened when the feet of the priests touched the waters, and they're on their way. Incidentally, there isn't a staff here initiating this sequence. It's the feet of the priests that get things going. The Ark of the Lord is the one that opens the way now. So when their feet touch the water, the waters then parted in front of them, or flowed away from them into the Dead Sea. Fanechnu, in front of us, not in front of them, in front of us. Me fanechnu, in front of us. At abrinu, until we crossed. Okay? Until we crossed. These are third person plural endings right here. Me fanechnu, in front of us, until we crossed. Psalm 66 verse 6 celebrates this event, and it covers both of the departure from Egypt and the arrival in Israel, or in the Promised Land. He turned the sea into dry land. They crossed the river on foot, and there we rejoiced in him. Hapag Yam, okay, he turned Yam le Yabasha, turned the sea into dry land. Okay, the sea became dry land. Banahar, into the river. Yabru, they crossed Regal, on foot, with their foot. They crossed the river here on foot. Sham Nish Mecha Bo, and there we rejoiced in it. Nish is the first person plural prefix form of shema, is to rejoice or sing praises, And so we rejoiced in it. We rejoice in it. Or in him, okay, in him. This is the third person suffix pronoun here. We rejoiced in him. Could be the event of what happened, but also the action of Jehovah in doing this. And he answered them. This is Jonah 1 verse 9. As I said, we find Yabasha in many interesting places. Not many interesting places, but places we do find it. It is interesting. And he answered them, I am a Hebrew. I fear Jehovah, the God of the heavens, who made the sea and the dry land. Okay? And he said to them, Ibri Anochi, Hebrew I am. Okay. The sailors totally scared, biggest storm they'd ever seen in their lives, throwing stuff overboard, and they finally roused Jonah out of his sleep, and they go, hey, wake up, you sleep ahead, tell us what's going on. And so Jonah has to confess what's happening. This has been brought on by the Lord, and it's a sign of God's power. So Jonah can understand it. The other sailors got to understand it as well. Vayomer Elohim, he said to them, Ibri Anochi, I'm a Hebrew person. I am Ve'et Yahweh Elohe Hashemayim, and Jehovah, the God of the heavens. Ani Yareh, I fear him. Okay, I fear. Then this is direct article indicator right here. Et. So I fear this Jehovah, God of the heavens. I fear him. This is the long pronoun form, first person singular pronoun form. Anochi is the short form, ani. It's interesting to see them used inside the very same verse. Sometimes you think, oh, they're going to start with one and keep it. No, sometimes they switch it out here. Anochi, I think when it's closer to Yahweh, it tends to get a little more formal here. Ani Yareh, Asher Asah, who has made Et Hayam, the sea, Ve'et Yabasha, and the dry land. And so, at this point, when he said this, all of the sailors were really hoping very fervently for dry land because they were in the midst of a terrible, terrible storm. And then after Jonah gets thrown overboard, he's swallowed by a fish and spends 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the fish. And then Jehovah commanded the fish, and it spit Jonah onto dry land. Vayomer Yahweh Ledag, to the fish, Yakeh, the kof, its root meaning is to have a line with a knot on it. Okay, a line with a knot on it, and it often means something you're holding on to, something that you tie up, something like that. It seems like for the fish, Jonah was tied up in his throat. So this is kind of, and then the fish cleared its throat. The translations often are it's vomited it. Apparently, we all tend to think what happened to Jonah. We also remember that it wasn't a pleasant experience for the fish either. The Yakev, and he spit up at Jonah. Okay, they spit Jonah out onto the shore. Al ha Yabasha. He wasn't just left out on the ocean to swim for himself. The fish brought him to the seashore and spit him up onto solid land. The Jewish thought very much has, on solid land you're standing firm. Out in the ocean you're in danger. So the ocean is a dangerous place. So for the fish to put him up on dry land was truly a miraculous sign from God. Now, Jesus, in his debates with his contemporaries, they kept asking him questions. Give us a sign, tell us what's going on, blah 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 blah. But he answered them. Jesus answered them: an evil and adulterous generation demands a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. In other words, take a look at what happened to Jonah. Just as Jonah was in the belly of the huge fish for 3 days and 3 nights, so the Son of Man will be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. In other words, If the good Lord protects Jonah in the middle of something like that, the good Lord will also protect the Son of Man in the heart of the earth. In other words, the good Lord will protect the Son of Man even when he's placed in the tomb. So this was a prophecy that Jesus was given as to what was going to happen to him. The disciples had a really hard time figuring it out, and really only understood it afterwards. And so, but we find it very heartening that Jesus knew beforehand exactly what would be happening. So we have this message from God. Serve him with diligence, and there are times we are thrown into the sea, but the Lord parts the waters, and we find firm ground to walk on. And that's what the Lord wants to provide for us as we move forward in life. Look for the firm ground you find when you are serving the Lord. May God bless you in this day. And until the next time.